The roar of engines shattered the quiet night, echoing across the dimly lit parking lot of a small-town diner. People inside froze, forks halfway to their mouths, eyes darting nervously toward the windows. Outside, a group of leather-clad bikers rolled in, their boots stomping heavy on the cracked pavement as they dismounted. They weren't just here for burgers or coffee. A trouble rode in with them, and in the middle of the room, seated calmly with a steaming cup of coffee in hand, was Senator John Kennedy. Most people knew Kennedy for his wit, his sharp tongue, and his old-fashioned charm. What they didn't know or even suspect was the other side of him, the discipline and strength that came from years of grueling martial arts training. He held a black belt in karate, earned not in politics or debate halls, but in sweat-soaked dojos where respect and patience were as important as power. He had never flaunted it, never needed to. But that night, fate was about to test him in a way no debate stage ever could. The bikers barged inside, their laughter crude, their presence suffocating. The leader, a tall man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, scanned the room before his gaze settled on Kennedy. The senator didn't flinch. He simply stirred his coffee. Well, the scarred man sneered. If it ain't the big shot senator himself, what you doin' here in the middle of nowhere? Ain't this place a little too a broken bar ordinary for you? His voice dripped with mockery as his men spread out, intimidating the diners, knocking over chairs just for the thrill of seeing fear. Kennedy finally looked up, his calm eyes meeting the man's glare. Ordinary is where life's real lessons come from, he said, his voice steady. Now, why don't you and your boys sit down, get yourselves some coffee, and spare these fine folks the trouble? The room went silent. Nobody had ever spoken to the gang that way. A few bikers laughed in disbelief, but it was an uneasy laugh. The leader's expression hardened, and he slammed his fist against the table, rattling the silverware. You got guts, old man, he growled. But guts don't stop bones from breaking. He motioned toward Kennedy. Teach him a lesson. Boys. The bikers closed in, their heavy boots thudding against the floor. Diners gasped, some shielding their children, others praying silently. Kennedy stood slowly, setting his coffee down without a rush, as though he had been expecting this moment all along. His posture shifted to calm, yet firm. Years of training awakened in his muscles. The first biker lunged. In one swift movement, Kennedy sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, and flipped him clean over onto the ground. The crack of impact echoed through the diner. Gasps turned into stunned silence. The others hesitated, but their pride pushed them forward. Two more came at once, swinging fists like hammers. Kennedy blocked, his hands precise and controlled, striking just enough to disarm without destroying. A sharp kick to the knee, a palm strike to the chest, and both the men were on the ground groaning. The leader stared in disbelief as his crew, one by one, fell to the skill of a man they had underestimated. Kennedy's movements were fluid, not wild or reckless. Every strike spoke of discipline, every defense of years spent learning restraint. He wasn't fighting to humiliate Thema, he was fighting to protect the people around him. Finally, it was just the scarred leader left standing. Rage burned in his eyes, but beneath it was something else. Fear. Kennedy straightened, his breathing calm, his eyes locked onto the man. You still think this is about breaking bones? Kennedy asked quietly. Strength isn't about hurting people. Real strength is knowing when not to. The leader clenched his fists but didn't move. The weight of Kennedy's words and the proof of his skill was heavier than any blow. With a shaky breath, he spat on the floor, muttered a curse, and signaled his men. Slowly, they limped out, beaten not just by fists, but by dignity. When the roar of engines faded into the distance, the diner erupted into applause. People rushed to thank Kennedy, their fear replaced with awe. But Kennedy didn't bask in the attention. He simply picked up his coffee, now lukewarm, and took a sip. Sometimes, he said with a small smile, the best way to silence trouble is to stand taller than fear. That night, Kennedy didn't just protect a diner full of strangers. He left behind a lesson etched in every witness's heart that true strength is not in power or intimidation, but in discipline, courage, and the wisdom to use both sparingly. And for the bikers who rode off into the night, they carried with them a memory they would never forget, the night they threatened John Kennedy. unaware he carried not just a black belt in kata but the heart of a man who knew exactly when and how to use it.